Welcome to the Digital Coffee Date, where inspiration pours into conversations that brew meaningful change. I'm your host, Jessica Rosado, television host, singer, and multimedia producer. And every month, I sit down with bold, brilliant women who are doing meaningful work and making a powerful global footprint. Around here, we talk about the real journey behind success, the messy beginnings, the big ideas, the pivots, and the major milestones. These women come from all walks of life and industries, but one thing they all have in common, they're not just leading the way, they're paving a path forward. So grab your coffee and join us as we dive into the stories that shape future legacies, spark remarkable change, and remind us of what's possible. Hello, gorgeous. We're back. I am so excited. Now, for those of you who have been rocking with me since the very beginning, thank you so much and welcome back. Now, for those of you who might just be tuning in, let me personally welcome you to the Digital Coffee Date podcast and community. I'm Jessica Rosado, and if I'm not on television or singing, I'm here facilitating this wonderful space for incredible women, and I am so happy to be back with all of you. Now, today isn't just about a podcast comeback. Oh no, it's a reflection of growth and to cover where I am and where the Digital Coffee Date community is truly headed. Now, for those of you who have been tuning in, you probably know the story behind the Digital Coffee Date, but for our new listeners, it's time to just lay out everything. So the Digital Coffee Date podcast was really created out of a sense of me looking for inspiration. You know, I was looking to be inspired to change the circle of women that I had around me, and I was looking for what my next step is. How do I go to the next level? And a lot of the really great friends that I had around me had said, you know, sometimes you need to have conversations. You need to seek out some mentorships. And in looking toward all of that, I said, you know what? I think I may just need to create this space, not just for myself, because I realized there was a lot of women who also needed to hear not just the inspiring stories, but it's those stories when you find yourself in a rut. It's those stories that you go, man, I was doing this thing for so long, or I was knowing what I wanted to do and just never quite getting there. And then you hear this entire backstory of how they just went for it, or what was the catalyst that drove them to take that next step. And in that's what I was looking for. I was looking for that insane and beautiful inspiration. And so this podcast was born. I was, searching for these women on Instagram and saying, I want to have open dialogue. And, this was also, of course, built through the pandemic. So this was a space where a lot of us were thinking, what's next? Where do I go from here? What do I do? And we were in such a digital space and a digital world that's kind of where the title was born from. When you're having these coffee dates and you're meeting up with incredible people, or you're in a networking environment, you're having kind of surface level conversations, right? What do you do? Why do you do it? But you're not really getting quite to the nitty-gritty. You're not getting down to that story. And those were the things that I wanted to learn about so that then I could be inspired by it, and not just me, so that a whole new community could be built and inspired by it as well. Now, this podcast has always been about real conversations with women who are doing powerful things. And this new season is no different. What is different, I will tell you, is the clarity, the intention, and truly the way I'm showing up now in this space. I do have to acknowledge that there was a bit of a hiatus, because I know we've talked about coming back, the relaunch and the revamp, saying welcome back from the very beginning. So I was on a hiatus. I took some time off after season 2 to really just regroup. At the time, I was the end all be all, doing every single thing for the podcast. And it just felt like a lot of life hit, and I needed to reset, regroup so that I could restart and come back even more powerful with all of that intention. So like I said, it is the start of a new chapter. And so I've got some really exciting things ahead that I really can't wait to share with you, from new segments that we have within each episode, like Passing the Cup. Love that, right? Ooh, and the final sip. So from those two things, we'll get into what those mean, to the impactful online community that's turning into a new app. That's right. You heard it here first, okay? While all surrounding those monthly deep dive conversations with women that are making real impact. You'll be seeing this same space truly evolve into something new right along with me. And I am so thrilled that all of you have joined me on this exciting new space and this journey. So let's get into it. When I first launched this podcast 5 years ago. Yes, 5 years ago. That is half of a decade, okay? I was in such a different place in my career, in my creativity, in how I saw myself. And a couple of years in, I did make that choice, that difficult choice to step away, but not because I didn't love it, but because I needed that space. So during the time of the podcast, I was the everything. I wore every single hat for this space, from finding the guest to scheduling their episodes, to talking with them, to creating the content, to recording the episodes themselves, to editing those episodes. From everything you can imagine of what it takes to put a podcast together, I was that person because it was my baby. It was my idea. It was something I dreamt up from a place of needing inspiration and wanting to seek it out because I knew so many other people needed that same inspiration as well. So I was everything. And as much as I loved it, I was truly not just seeking, of course, everything is more clear in retrospect, but I wasn't just seeking inspiration. I was seeking direction. I was in a place in my life where I really, really needed to know what was next for myself. I had a background in performing arts as an actress, as a singer. I've been singing since I was 7 years old. And I had a degree in mass communications with a concentration in broadcast production, my journalism hat that was on all throughout my schooling, and all of these different things that sort of didn't make sense in the moment, but I knew were all things I loved to do and kind of all played together in a really fun and eclectic way. And so I had all of these things, but while I was pursuing my performing arts side, I was also building a 14-year marketing background in the process. So I had this corporate hat on and I had this artsy-fartsy hat on, and I was looking for what was next. And of course, as many of you know, during the pandemic, so many of us are searching. We're looking for what that next step is. I mean, there was a time where I was going to get my master's degree at USC and do their cinematic arts program. There was another time where I was quite literally on my way to go to London to study law, to become a solicitor and do a law degree. I mean, there was all these different shifts and turns and almost even complete pivots that could have really changed my life in such a crazy way, it seems now, because truly I always knew what I was meant to do. And those God-given talents that I had on the stage and with my voice, those were things that I just could never get rid of. I could never let go of because I always knew what I was meant to do. But that, just because you know what you're meant to do doesn't mean that that makes the journey any less easy or any more clear. So I knew what I wanted to do. I knew who I wanted to be. I knew what I saw for my life. But it was very difficult to find how I was going to get my foot in the door. As many of you maybe know personally or only can imagine, the entertainment industry is a really difficult industry to navigate. The music industry even more, so much so that I had even given up singing for 11 and a half years. So there was a lot of trying to figure it out. But one of the things that was always true in my story and in my experience is that I never stopped moving. Just because I was stuck, just because I needed help and I needed someone to help launch me forward, or I needed support, or I needed to know what my next move was, and I was yearning for direction, it never meant that my movement stopped. It never meant that I became stagnant. And that was something that I have always prided myself on and was always proud of myself for, that just because you're in a rut or just because you feel like you're not moving at the time doesn't mean that you don't have to move. And there are ways that you can still keep doing and creating and figuring out along the way. Much like you'll hear a lot of entrepreneurs say, well, my side hustle became my main hustle. And, you've got to still constantly be moving. I truly, truly believe that God finds us when we're moving. And that's something I have lived my life believing and still do to this day. And so as I'm, developing the platform and being that person from everything to point A to point Z, but really knowing deep down I needed to recenter and realign and figure out where my focus needed to be. I do think that there is something while I agree you should be moving, there has to be the right intention behind the movement. And sometimes when we put so much on our plates, it can make us feel busy rather than productive. It can make us feel like, we've got so much on our plate. We've got so much, and it could almost make you feel productive because you're always doing. But it's got to all mean something in the end. So everything that we do has to have that intention behind it. And I didn't want to get burnt out. And I was starting to get that way with this podcast. I was starting to feel like I cannot be the person to do it all and still be so lost within myself. Yes, I was looking for inspiration. Yes, these women's stories were incredibly inspiring, but I needed to be doing all of that work I was putting into the podcast. I needed to be also putting in to my life and figuring out what that next step was for me. So really that hiatus, that space and that time, it became this season of growth. It became this moment where I could find myself and find the alignment in my life just with all the aspects, right? And from that moment happened such a beautiful thing where life just began to blossom. I married a man I was in love with for 10 years. We rekindled, we got married, we did the whole life thing. I was working at Resorts World here in Las Vegas, doing brand marketing management and overseeing all of their food and beverage programming for campaigns and brand concepts. And I was feeling creative, but still that feeling of unfulfillment. And I truly think that when we take the time and we find out what we're meant to do and we're not doing that, that's where that misalignment comes in. Because as great as I was in marketing, and as long as I had done it for, because I have that creative eye and that creative mind, it wasn't what I truly loved to do, which was sing, which was be on camera, which was talking to people, having meaningful conversations. So I found myself, searching and going and moving, but being very unhappy. So in the space where I'm working at Resorts World, I'm like, I love what I'm doing, but I'm still, there's something not right. I see this opening for a television host for a lifestyle show here in Las Vegas. And I said, you know what? even at the very least, if I don't get it, and let me tell you something as a side note, because if you know me, you know I always give a lot of side notes. When I'm on one train, I may give you a little side train action. That sounded so ridiculous, but you get where I'm going with this. Hold on. So as I'm, looking at this opening, one thing I have always lived by is you don't know, right? Like you don't know until you try. You don't know something is going to work out until you do it. Because you could think about it all day long, all day, every day, all day, every day. But until you put into action those ideas and those concepts, you really don't know what's going to work. And I had learned that early on with a variety of different things, much like this podcast. And I decided, whether I get this opportunity to be on television or not, yes, it would have been my first TV job. Yes, I have all this experience from acting and media and being on camera and being on a stage and talking to people and having conversations and building a docuseries and doing all these things. I had the experience, but was I ever on television? No. But I knew I could do it. And at the very least, if I didn't get it, I damn sure was going to appreciate the experience of going for it and saying, you know what, well, at least I went for it. And one thing that I always like to live by is never living with regret. You don't know until you do it. So I went for it. I applied. I got in for the first round of interviews. I did the audition, coming in, doing the screen test. Let me tell you something about this process, okay? It was about 3 to 4 months of this process of mind you, I'm praying, I'm crying, I'm talking to my mom, I'm talking to everybody, my husband. I'm like, oh my God, I just need this opportunity. But at the same time, knowing that what is for you will not miss you. And I was blessed to be able to get the opportunity. I got the role. I've been doing that, ever since for the last now 2 years. And I've been enjoying it. I love it. And when I got that position, I was in this space of I did that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to sing the national anthem. I'm a singer. I love to sing the anthem. It's always been a little girl dream of mine to, be on that field and singing that anthem and before a huge game. And I wanted to do it. Well, I hadn't recently done it because, as I mentioned earlier, I had an 11.5-year hiatus from even singing or using my voice because the music industry could be that hard, right? So I said, well, what am I going to do? I took a video out, took a camera out, and I recorded me singing the national anthem in my house. I went and did research. I found out what the emails were to that I could send it to, that I could pitch it to. Hey, if you ever need, an anthem singer, if somebody ever cancels on you, here I am. Here's my voice. And I was able to get my first opportunity to sing the national anthem for the Las Vegas Aviators from me doing that. So I do think that when we're moving, even if we're unsure, finding the ways that if you see something and you see a goal, figuring out how you can do it, even if it's not perfect. For that national anthem video, that was at my house. I could have easily said, I need studio time. Even my husband had said, do you need a studio? Should we do this massive video? Bless his heart. He was like, how do I support you in this? And I was like, no, because if I do it that way, it's going to take too long. I'm going to be a perfectionist at it because I am. Sorry. And I said, no, I need to put that aside and do this video. And in doing that, I was able to book that. And I've sung the national anthem multiple times for a lot of our sports teams here in Las Vegas. So I have to tell you, that is a big part of my story, is that while things didn't even make sense in the moment, I was still always going for it in some way, shape, or form. So as I said, these stories, right, during that time, during that space, during that moment, I was able to find my voice in new ways as a host, as a singer, as a storyteller. I really started to lean into those things that lit me up again. And eventually, coming into now in this space, I realized this podcast wasn't over for me. It was just waiting for me to come back with this renewed sense of purpose. And it's true, because me wanting to talk about not just my life, but sharing other women's stories. That is the storyteller in me that I've always been, even when I used to write little stories as a 2-year-old and drawing little pictures. I mean, that has been me. So some of the key takeaways here, even from just this moment in that reset and that time, to myself and being able to realign myself and my purpose, you sometimes need to just own it and do it anyway, right? Like, whether it's perfect, as I mentioned, whether it looks the best or it feels the best, do it anyways, because you don't know until you do. Now, why this podcast matters, why this time, this moment right now, coming back to the digital coffee date meant rethinking what kind of space I wanted to create. This isn't just a surface level show. We're not here for, highlight reels and, my life is so great and everything is so great. That's wonderful that it is, but we're here for the full picture, right? Because life is already like that. We post the best of the best when we're on Instagram, when we're doing things. It's the highlight reel. We already have that. But we want to know the breakdowns, the breakthroughs, the late nights, the pivots, the real life stuff that doesn't always make our bios all the time. This is what this space is for. These stories matter because they reflect us women building, evolving, healing, and making impact in a 1,000 different ways, whether through entrepreneurship, philanthropy, the corporate world, or personal transformation. These conversations remind us that legacy isn't built all at once. It's built in these incredible and pivotal moments, even when they feel small in the moment. So if you've ever found yourself in that in-between space, wondering what's next, wondering whether you've got what it takes, whether this is the moment for you, whether you're navigating reinvention, chasing the clarity, or even just trying to do your best with what you have, this space right here, the digital coffee date, is for you. Now this season, oh boy, am I excited, because you're going to hear from incredible women, corporate executives, founders, creators, and community builders. We're talking about balance, identity, visibility, impact, and the realities, behind all of these things. So just to give you a lay of the land of what you can expect over this next year, episodes will be dropping monthly on every second Saturday of each month. You'll have every conversation that will end with 2 signature moments, and I kind of teased to this earlier. The first is our Passing the Cup. This is where guests share their legacy, the legacy they really hope to leave for the next generation. And then our final sip segment, which you might hear some slurping involved. I don't know why. I think it's because it's not such an etiquette thing. You're not supposed to slurp. I think that's why I like it. So we'll do a little slurpsies, okay? Oh, and if you need a sound effect, hold on. I'm grabbing my coffee right now. Here's what it sounds like. Sometimes when you're spilling the tea, that's how you gotta sip. But our final sip segment is a piece of truth or advice they'd want every woman to hold on to. So we're talking legacy, leaving behind for the next generation, and that final sip of just those words of advice, things you want women to take away with. And that's what every episode is going to include toward the end. Now, my hope is that you leave every episode truly, truly being seen, inspired, and reminded of just how powerful your story is too. It's not just about me. It's not just about the women you're going to hear from. It's also about you. You have a powerful story. You have a powerful concept. You have a powerful idea, a powerful business, and you have the powerful tools within you to do it. So we will be not just having these conversations. As I mentioned, if you'll notice, I often say the Digital Coffee Date podcast and community. That's because I built an actual online community. When I created the podcast, it wasn't just about women tuning in to listen to these stories. It was about creating a sense of connection and a sense where women could go after the podcast. Throughout these last 2 seasons, we have talked about very deep and heavy topics. And sometimes that 30 to 40 minutes that you're listening, you may feel like, you know what, I need to really talk further about this. I need to connect not just maybe with the woman I was hearing from, but I want to connect with other women who might be dealing with these same things in this space. And so I built the digitalcoffeedate.com, which is an online community with free memberships where women can connect with one another, talk about the podcast, get into some deep convos, put your profile picture in there, honey, so we know you look cute, and just really feel safe, seen, and heard. And that's why I also tease to an app coming soon, because let's face it, if we don't have an app, it is not going to be conducive enough for us to go to a website all the time. We are busy women. We need those apps to give us those notifications and know who we need to be talking to. So we really do have so much more than just a podcast, so much more than just a place where you listen. It's a place where you engage. And that's what the Digital Coffee Date community is all about. And I'll be honest with you, in thinking about coming back and thinking about, is this the right time to bring the Digital Coffee Date back? It felt scary. It doesn't just feel scary to create something and put it out for people to, either judge or consume or like, dislike, whatever the case may be. It feels scary to also do a comeback, right? Because you've set the bar, you have an expectation, but you want to do more, you want to feel more, you want people to engage more. So it feels like there's just as much pressure. I didn't know if people would still be listening. I didn't know if my voice would still matter. There were all these thoughts and ideas surrounding that scary feeling. But one thing that's true about art, which includes any idea that you think about or come up with or something you want to do, even in business. But when you think about putting ourselves out there, we can't really call art unless others can see it, right? When you create, think about even a painting. If you created a painting and it only stayed in your house, it could be your piece of art, sure, but art is shared. Art is part of community, and much like anything that we do, whether it's on the creative front in music and in the podcast or in acting or whatever it is that you're doing, even in any form of business, your idea, your entrepreneurship ventures, it doesn't really quite solidify what you're doing until you put it out there for consumption. And to do that, you have to have, I don't want to say that you have to be fearless, because the truth is we're not fearless. The truth is you just have to get over it, right? Like, you have to just do it anyway. I may be afraid, but I'm going to do this anyway. You have to. When I was thinking about all these things, right? Is it right? Is it the right time? Is this the right moment? Is this what I should be doing? Do people even want to listen? All these things I mentioned. What is the other alternative? These conversations aren't had. I don't build this community. I don't continue investing in this community of women who just want to connect, of women who are looking for what that next step is, or looking for that same inspiration I was looking for and yearning for. To me, when we have these incredible and groundbreaking ideas, these are callings. These are our moments to show up for ourselves. So what I learned is you don't need to be fully healed or completely and 110% ready to show up Because we all know, as I mentioned, I was a perfectionist, right? Yeah, that perfectionism, I'm battling that every single day because I need to just put the work out there. It needs to just be seen. And you can edit something over and over and over and over and over again. But if you never put it out because it's not perfect, well, now you've done yourself and those people you could have impacted a disservice. You just need to be willing. That's what you need for anything that you have going on. So this podcast isn't about being perfect. As you mentioned, you're going to hear me probably slip up on some words. Maybe I'll throw in an maybe I'll throw in a pause. Maybe I'll breathe a little. Who knows? There's all kinds of things that are going to be going on in this podcast. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being present. And I am so grateful to be present here with you. Now, in these episodes, I mentioned we would be closing with 2 powerful questions. So the first of the 2, obviously the passing of the cup, and the final sip. So today, what better way to put these into practice than to do it myself? So today, my passing the cup is this community. I hope to leave behind this safe space where women are revived and find purpose through our conversations, and that the community I'm continuing to build is one where women feel seen, feel valued, and feel heard. My final sip for today is never, with a capital never, devalue yourself when you need to hit pause. Just like the rest of us, sometimes we are more productive when we give ourselves that time and that space to reset. So if you're sitting on something, let this podcast and this community be your sign to start. Hit record and let's get moving, mama. That's the vibe. Now, we are closing up today, but we've got some really fun stuff in store for you ahead. Remember to visit thedigitalcoffeedate.com where you can sign up for our monthly newsletter, getting all the updates, all the tea and coffee that we're spilling, so you always know when we have events coming up, when the app launches. Yes, that's right. You see me tease that a couple times, right? And like I said, pretty soon you will be able to download this in both the Google Play Store for my Android users, oh my gosh, and as well for the Apple Store and all my Apple users. Again, I've had a wonderful, wonderful time, and I am so happy to be back with you.